Thank you, Ms. Clark. I am pleased to introduce Dr. Eileen Fry-Bowers, Dean of the School of Nursing and Health Professions, who will now present today's honorary degree recipient and commencement speaker. Dean Fry-Bowers.
Thank you, Provost Apara. It is my pleasure to present our honorary degree recipient and today's commencement speaker. Will the Dr. Ricardo F. Munoz please rise? Father Fitzgerald, on behalf of the Board of Trustees, it is my privilege to present for the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa, Dr. Ricardo F. Munoz, Distinguished Professor of Clinical Psychology, Palo Alto University, and Professor of Psychology Emeritus, University of California, San Francisco. Dr. June Madsen-Clausen, Professor in the School of Nursing and Health Professions, will read the citation.
Internationally renowned expert in the prevention and treatment of depression and addiction. Visionary researcher whose embrace of cutting-edge technologies has extended healthcare's reach and increased its effectiveness. Compassionate clinician who works tirelessly to bring hope and healing to those whose mental health hangs in the balance. Revered professor who has inspired the next generation of investigators and practitioners to work towards stemming the growing epidemic of depression. Powerful advocate for making access to healthcare a human right. Ricardo Muñoz, you are a recognized pioneer in the field of depression and addiction prevention and treatment. Your revolutionary research demonstrates the power of teaching people diagnosed with clinical depression how to manage their symptoms while depression is perhaps still a storm on the horizon. You champion evidence-based online interventions for health and wellness, as well as digital self-help solutions for reducing health disparities worldwide. Your rationale for tackling such monumental challenges is explained in your favorite quote: "It's the greatest of all mistakes to do nothing because you can only do a little. Do what you can." Guided healthcare enables clinicians at a distance to do something rather than nothing. After more than 3 decades as a professor of psychology at UC San Francisco School of Medicine, you transitioned in 2012 to emeritus status. Based at San Francisco General Hospital, where you served as chief psychologist for more than 25 years, you directed the clinical psychology training program, of which I and several USF faculty are alumni, for a decade. You established the hospital's Latino mental health research program in 1992 and founded the Internet World Health Research Center in 2004. You were the principal investigator on the first randomized controlled trial to prevent major depression. Today, you are a distinguished professor of clinical psychology at Palo Alto University. In the pre-internet 1970s, you turned to emerging technologies for new ways to share research, treat patients, and partner with others in your field. You have been a leader in the development of internet interventions for health for more than 3 decades. You were a founding member of the Board of Directors for International Society for Research on Internet Interventions. Your lifelong mission to share your knowledge was spurred by your mother. In 1961, you were 10 when your mother explained that your family would leave Peru to move to the United States for better educational opportunities. She added that the family would return someday so you could share what you had learned. Since earning a bachelor's in psychology at Stanford and a master's degree and doctorate in clinical psychology from the University of Oregon, you have shared generously all that you have discovered in the lab, in the field, and in the classroom. You have a deep connection to the University of San Francisco's Jesuit community through the strong influence of your teachers at St. Ignatius College Prep. It is fitting that you are back in St. Ignatius Church today, more than 50 years after delivering your first public address as the valedictorian of the St. Ignatian class of 1968. You are a role model for our graduates. Your intentional career in leading-edge research, exemplary teaching, and forward-thinking clinical practice has been compelled by your full embrace of the Ignatian principle to advocate for and serve others in need. Your vital work has been widely recognized. You received the 2018 Mentor Award from the Association for Behavioral and Cognitive Therapies. You are a Fellow of the American Association for the Advancement of Science for distinguished contributions toward the prevention of major depression and the development of web-based interventions. You recently founded Eye for Health, an institute dedicated to developing evidence-based psychological interventions in multiple languages for people worldwide using internet sites and mobile applications, among many other honors. That all may know of our esteem for you and our support for your heroic efforts to prevent and treat depression, and to increase global access to health care for those in need, the university does, therefore, confer upon Ricardo F. Muñoz the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa, with all the rights and privileges pertaining thereunto, given the 16th day of December in the year of our Lord 2022, and of the university, the 167th in San Francisco, California.
Members of the Board of Trustees, President Fitzgerald, Provost Oparda, Dean Frey-Bowers, faculty and staff of the university, families, friends, and graduates. Buenas tardes, good afternoon. It is a great pleasure to join the 2022 graduates of the University of San Francisco School of Nursing and Health Professions as you celebrate this major life milestone. I want to thank the representatives of the graduating undergraduates and graduates for their powerful and heartfelt remarks, and Professor June Madsen-Clausen for her kind introduction. I am extremely grateful to President Fitzgerald for the great honor of being your commencement speaker and for bestowing upon me the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters. Having a degree from a Jesuit institution makes you a member of a very large family throughout the world who have been lucky enough to receive a Jesuit education. Today, you are joining over 100 million of their alumni in over 90 countries. Having attended St. Ignatius High School, or SI, I know that Jesuit education exemplifies the well-known Socrates quote that education is the kindling of a flame, not the filling of a vessel. I would like to share 5 ideas that kindle flames within me. Each of you have similar flames flickering within you, just waiting for the opportunity to become real. Ideas shape our minds, actions shape our world. The first idea, as Dr. Madsen mentioned, came from my first teacher, my mother, Clara Luz, who taught me to read and write before I went to school, and who has always been a clear light illuminating my path. When I was 10 years old, living in Chosica, a town in Peru, she told me, "Your father finished primary school, I finished high school, and we'd like our children to go to university, but we don't have the money to send you. So your father has decided to immigrate to the United States, where there are many educational opportunities, and when you finish your education, we'll come back to Peru so you can share what you've learned." That day she taught me that education was so valuable that it was worth traveling halfway around the world to get. But she taught me one more thing, that once you get it, you share it. That was the mission with which we came to the Mission District here in San Francisco. I went to Mission Dolores and then to St. Ignatius. And the second kindling of a flame occurred at St. Ignatius. There we were taught that the ultimate goal of education was to become a person for others, persons ready to do one more thing to add to the universal good. The third idea came from my senior honors thesis at Stanford University, Albert Bandura, who taught me about self-efficacy, which is the belief in our capacity to act in ways necessary to reach specific goals, of having confidence in our ability to exert control over our own motivation, behavior, and our social environment. But again, he taught me one more thing, collective efficacy, which is the ability to achieve goals by collaborating with others. On September 1972, 50 years ago, I arrived at the University of Oregon in Eugene to begin my doctorate in clinical psychology with the hope of becoming a therapist. The fourth idea, once again, prompted me to do one more thing. At the first talk I attended, the speaker chided us around the room and said, "You know, we therapists sit in our offices and wait until people suffer enough to have to come to see us. We should be going out into the community and sharing what we've learned as health professionals so that we can prevent the problems and bring them to our offices." I found that idea so compelling that from that moment on, I decided to spend half of my professional time focused on prevention and the other half on treatment. The fifth idea came from my dissertation chair, Peter Lewinson, one of the pioneers in what's now called behavioral activation. He taught that people need a basic amount of daily pleasant activities, mastery activities, or meaningful activities to remain healthy. And those are the ideas that I've built into what I call the healthy management of reality, which is the basis for the prevention and treatment methods we've developed over the years. So how have these ideas shaped my work? 6 days after completing my PhD, it was September the 6th, 1977, I walked into San Francisco General Hospital as an assistant professor of psychology in the School of Medicine at the University of California, San Francisco. At one of the first departmental meetings, I pointed out that even though we were in the Mission District, the Latino barrio, there was only one Spanish-speaking nurse in the whole department. One of the administrators glared at me across this large conference table and said to me, "Ricardo, are you calling us racist?" I have no memory of how I responded to that. It was a very traumatic event. I was only 27 years old. But a few days later, I asked that one nurse, the one Latino social worker, and the one Latina psychiatrist to meet with me, and together we put together a request to be officially designated as the Latino Task Force and charged with advocating for services for Spanish-speaking patients. Dr. Frank Johnson, who was the chief of psychiatry back then, listened respectfully and told us he'd get back to us. A few days later, he called me into his office and said, "You know, Ricardo, I like your idea, but why limit it to Latinos? Let's create an ethnic minority issues committee. Would you like to chair it?" Would I like to chair it? Of course. So I did, and together with my colleagues, we not only established a Latino task force, but a Black task force, an Asian and Pacific Islanders task force, a gay lesbian task force, and a women's issues task force. And those task forces eventually advocated to have treatment teams focused on each of those communities. Very soon, we were really successful at recruiting faculty, staff, and trainees from those communities. And soon, the Department of Psychiatry at San Francisco General Hospital became one of the most diverse departments in the University of California, San Francisco. We had practiced collective self-efficacy. A few years later, while conducting the first depression prevention study at San Francisco General in English, Spanish, and Chinese, I found out that many of our patients were already clinically depressed. So I asked a couple of our trainees to join me in establishing a depression clinic that would provide cognitive behavioral, individual, and group therapy in Spanish and English. And we ran that clinic for 10 years, offering therapy at no charge to our patients. After the 10 years, the hospital enlarged the clinic. It's now an operating clinic. It's been operating for 38 years now. So I had spent 10 years focused on treatment, and I had to return to prevention. Our depression prevention program eventually developed El Curso Mamás y Bebés, which means the Mothers and Babies course, which is a preventive intervention for women who are pregnant and at risk for depression. And the U.S. Preventive Services Task Force recently recommended that courses such as ours be routinely offered to pregnant persons who are at risk for depression. But there was one more thing to do. Our interventions only reached people at San Francisco General Hospital. Could we share what we were learning beyond our hospital? In the 1990s, the World Wide Web came into being. And starting in 1998, my colleagues and I have carried out numerous online studies that have helped literally thousands of people to stop smoking and to learn ways to prevent and treat depression. We have reached people all over the world, including Peru. Some time ago, I received an email from somebody from Chosica asking if I was the Ricardo Muñoz who went to primary school there in the 1950s. So my mother's dream that I could share what I have learned with people in my hometown came true. When I began my career, I could not have imagined all that I have described to you. The ideas you will have and the actions you will take in the next 40 or 50 years are going to surprise you. Don't be afraid of trying to address the needs of your communities when you see evidence of injustices and health inequities. You won't succeed all the time, but that's okay. I like this quote from Silvia Acevedo. If you hit the target 100% of the time, you're too close to the target. And once you do it once, you can do it again. My colleagues and I at Palo Alto University have established a Clínica Latina and a Latinx task force, which helped Palo Alto University to be designated a Hispanic-serving institution. Look for kindred spirits, others who strive to be persons for others, and you'll find many in the health professions. You're unlikely to accomplish as much on your own. Share what you know. In addition to thinking globally and acting locally, we can now share globally. As you develop ways to serve patients who are members of the communities you identify with, or who speak languages that you know, share them freely online so others working with patients like yours anywhere in the world can benefit from your work. Do not be afraid of sharing the ideas that most excite you. You will be kindling flames in those you will be teaching, not just formal students, but your children, your patients, the future health professionals you will be training, and anyone who happens to hear you. And do not let those flames that are now flickering within you flame out. Our collective flames can become a massive torch that can bring much needed loving warmth to the world reduce unnecessary suffering, and contribute something more to the greater universal good, what Jesuits refer to as the magis. Sí se puede. Yes, we can, and yes, you did. Thank you, and congratulations to the USF graduating class of 2022 and their families. Thank you.